I can't sit down. Please, Mrs. Vance, it hurts too much." The agonizing scream tore through the silence of the seventh-grade math test. Maya Jenkins, a quiet, brilliant 12-year-old girl, was standing by her desk, clutching her lower back, tears streaming down her face. Her breathing was ragged, her posture twisted as if her spine was on fire. Mrs. Vance, a teacher who had spent the last 20 years ruling her classroom with an iron fist and a thinly veiled disdain for certain students, looked up over her glasses. She didn't see a child in pain. She saw a confirmation. For months, Vance had targeted Maya. She hated her braids. She hated her confidence. But most of all, she hated that Maya was the top student in the class. It didn't fit Mrs. Vance's worldview. She had whispered in the teacher's lounge that Maya's family must be hiding something, and that girls from that background usually have chaotic home lives. Now, watching Maya sob and clutch her back, Vance's eyes lit up with a predatory gleam. "I knew it," she thought. "Physical abuse. The father. It's always the father with these families." "Maya, honey," Vance said, her voice dripping with a sickly sweet concern that didn't reach her cold eyes. She stood up and rushed over, not to help, but to secure her witness. "Is it your back? Did someone hurt you at home?" "My dad," Maya choked out between heavy sobs. He's guilty. He made me do it until I couldn't stand up straight." The classroom gasped. Vance felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the smoking gun she needed to call social services and finally put this family in their place. "Come with me immediately," Vance said, guiding Maya out of the room. "We are going to the principal's office. You're safe now." But as they turned the corner into the empty hallway, Maya's sobbing quieted just a fraction. She adjusted the collar of her shirt, ensuring the lens of the tiny, high-definition button camera pinned to her blouse was unobstructed. The microphone taped inside her jacket was already capturing every syllable. Mrs. Vance thought she was rescuing a victim. She had no idea she was walking a brilliant 12-year-old strategist into a masterfully laid trap. If you love seeing arrogant bullies get destroyed by the very people they underestimate, hit that subscribe button right now. You do not want to miss how Maya turns this teacher's prejudice into a most satisfying takedown in school history.
Mrs. Vance marched Maya into an empty conference room next to the principal's office. She didn't want the principal, Mr. Gowan, to interfere just yet. She wanted the confession on her terms first. She wanted the glory of saving the child. "Sit down, dear." "Oh, wait, you can't, can you?" Vance said, pulling up a chair for herself while leaving Maya standing. "Tell me exactly what happened. You said your father is guilty? What did he do?" Maya sniffled, wiping her eyes. She needed to feed Vance exactly what she wanted to hear to get the teacher to take off her mask completely. He made me carry heavy loads all weekend," I whimpered. "I told him it was too heavy. I told him my back was breaking, but he said we had to finish the foundation. He said if I didn't work hard, I wouldn't be worth anything." Vance shook her head, a smug look of satisfaction plastering her face. "Typical," she muttered, loud enough for the microphone to catch. "I knew it. Men like your father, they have aggressive tendencies. It's in their nature. They think children are just labor. And your mother? She just let this happen?" "Mom was working," Maya said softly. "She's always working." "Of course she is," Vance scoffed, leaning back. "Probably absent half the time, letting the man rule the house with violence. You know, Maya, people like you fall through the cracks because your parents don't know how to raise civilized children. They bring their street justice into the home." Maya looked down to hide the flash of anger in her eyes. "Street justice?" "You know what I mean. Vance said, her voice lowering into a conspiratorial whisper. The violence, the shouting, the lack of discipline. I've seen it 100 times in this district. Families who think they can act like animals just because they live in a nice zip code now. But don't worry, I'm going to make sure you never have to go back to that house. Maya pressed her arm against her side, feeling the recorder hum. She had it. So, you think my dad is a criminal? I think your dad is a brute who belongs in a cage, not raising a daughter. And I'm going to put him there.
The door opened abruptly. It was Principal Gowan, looking flustered, followed by Officer Miller, the school's resource officer. Vance had texted them, "Emergency, severe abuse confirmed," while Maya was crying. "Mrs. Vance, what is going on?" Mr. Gowan asked, looking at Maya standing awkwardly by the wall. "You said there was an immediate threat?" "There is." Vance stood up, puffing out her chest. "Maya has just confessed. Her father forced her to perform hard labor all weekend until her spine was injured. He physically abused her because he believes, and I quote, "she isn't worth anything if she doesn't work. I want this man arrested the moment he steps on campus." Officer Miller looked at Maya, concerned. "Is that true, kid? Did your dad hurt you?" Maya looked up, her face tear-stained, but her voice oddly steady. "I told Mrs. Vance my back hurts from what my dad made me do. She told me my dad is an animal who belongs in a cage." Mr. Gowan frowned. "Mrs. Vance, did you use those words?" "I was speaking metaphorically," Vance snapped, defensive but confident. "Look at the girl. She can't even sit. We are dealing with a violent man, likely with a criminal record. I've already called the parents. When the father gets here, I want him in handcuffs." "You called them?" Maya asked, a strange calmness settling over her. "Did you tell them why?" "I told them there was a medical emergency," Vance smirked. "I didn't want to spook him. I want to see the look on his face when he realizes his little reign of terror is over." "I think you're going to see a look on his face," Maya said, her voice dropping the tremble entirely. "But I don't think it's going to be fear."
The heavy double doors of the main office swung open. The sound of confident, expensive dress shoes clicking against the linoleum echoed down the hall. "Where is my daughter?" The voice was deep, resonant, and commanded immediate silence. Mrs. Vance turned around, expecting a brute in a tank top, perhaps someone smelling of alcohol. Instead, in walked Dr. Marcus Jenkins. He was wearing a tailored Italian three-piece suit, carrying a leather briefcase. He stood 6'3", radiating an aura of absolute authority. Beside him was Eleanor Jenkins, dressed in a sharp blazer, her eyes scanning the room with the precision of a laser. "Daddy!" Maya cried out. But this time, she didn't run to him in fear. She walked over and stood by his side. Mrs. Vance blinked, confused. This man didn't look like the thug she had described. But she doubled down. She had to. "Mr. Jenkins," Vance stepped forward, blocking him. "Officer, this is the man. He forced this child into hard labor. Look at her. She is in physical agony." Dr. Jenkins looked at Mrs. Vance, then down at his daughter. "Maya, are you okay?" "I'm sore, Dad, but Mrs. Vance says you're an animal who belongs in a cage because you made me build the foundation." Eleanor Jenkins stepped forward. Her voice was ice cold. "Excuse me, who exactly are you calling an animal?" "I am Mrs. Vance, a senior educator, and I know abuse when I see it. You people think money covers up your behavior? Forcing a 12-year-old to carry heavy loads? Breaking her back? It's barbaric." "Barbaric," Dr. Jenkins laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "I am the chief of orthopedic surgery at St. Jude's Hospital. My wife is a senior federal circuit court judge. Do you really think I injured my own daughter's spine?" Vance froze. Surgeon? Judge? "She confessed," Vance shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Maya. "She said you made her work until she broke. She said you were guilty." I said, "My dad is guilty of making me work hard." And he is.
"May I?" Maya asked her mother. Eleanor nodded, crossing her arms and staring daggers at the teacher. Maya pulled the small recording device from her jacket and placed it on the conference table. She also pulled out a folded piece of paper, a blueprint. "Mrs. Vance," Maya said, smoothing out the paper. "This weekend, my father and I were building a wheelchair ramp and a reading deck for the local community library. It's a volunteer project, Habitat for Literacy. I carried lumber because I asked to. My back is sore because I'm not used to manual labor, not because I was beaten." That's a lie," Vance stammered. "You said he was guilty." "Guilty of being a perfectionist," Maya said. "He made us redo the measurements 3 times. That's what I was complaining about." "But the crying," Vance grasped at straws. "You were hysterical." "I was in pain, yes. Delayed onset muscle soreness is real," Dr. Jenkins interjected calmly. "I gave her a nice pack and ibuprofen this morning. She was fine to go to school." "But that doesn't excuse what she said about you," Vance yelled. "You said you were dangerous." "No," Maya interrupted. "I didn't. You did. Do you want to hear what you said, Mrs. Vance?" Maya pressed play. The audio was crisp. The entire room heard Mrs. Vance's voice, loud and clear. "Men like your father, they have aggressive tendencies. It's in their nature. Families who think they can act like animals just because they live in a nice zip code, I'm going to make sure you never have to go back to that house." The silence in the room was deafening. Principal Gowan looked like he was about to vomit. Officer Miller took a slow step away from Mrs. Vance. "But wait," Maya said, pulling a thick binder from her backpack. "Here is a spreadsheet of every grade Mrs. Vance has given me versus the white students in my class for the last 6 months. She opened the binder. It was color-coded. "On October 12th, I got a B- on an essay for grammar. Here is the exact same essay submitted by a classmate, Sarah, with the same errors, who received an A. On November 4th, Mrs. Vance told the class that some people are naturally better at math because of their genetics, while looking directly at me." Dr. Jenkins picked up the binder, his hands trembling with suppressed rage. "Mr. Gowan," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "my daughter has conducted a forensic audit of this teacher's racism. This isn't just a bad apple. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen." Judge Eleanor Jenkins stepped forward. "Actually, Marcus, it's not just a lawsuit. Defamation of character, filing a false police report, discrimination in a federally funded educational institution. Mrs. Vance, you haven't just lost your job. You've just become my personal project."
Mrs. Vance looked around the room, sweat pouring down her forehead. The power dynamic had completely flipped. She wasn't the savior of a poor abused girl. She was a bigot caught in 4K resolution by a family vastly more powerful than she was. I was just trying to protect the child," Vance whispered, her voice cracking. "I have tenure. You can't—" "Tenure protects you from academic disagreements, Mrs. Vance," Principal Gowan said, his face red with fury. "It does not protect you from hate speech and falsifying abuse allegations against a federal judge and a surgeon. You are suspended, effective immediately. Get your things, now." "Officer," Eleanor Jenkins said, turning to the policeman, "I'd like to file a report regarding the false accusations made against my husband. I want it on record that this woman attempted to weaponize law enforcement based on racial bias." "Absolutely, ma'am," Officer Miller said, taking out his notepad and glaring at Vance. As Mrs. Vance grabbed her purse, trembling, she looked at Maya one last time. You tricked me. You set me up." Maya stood tall, her back pain forgotten in the rush of victory. She looked the teacher dead in the eye. "I didn't set you up, Mrs. Vance," Maya said calmly. "I just gave you enough rope. You were the one who decided to hang yourself with it. You underestimated me because of what I looked like. You thought I was a victim, but I'm my mother's daughter."
Vance fled the room, the sound of her heels clicking away much faster than she had arrived.
6 months later. The auditorium of the State Science and Engineering Fair was packed. And the gold medal for structural engineering goes to Maya Jenkins for her project, Community Infrastructure, the Physics of Accessibility. Maya walked onto the stage, beaming. In the audience, Dr. Marcus Jenkins and Judge Eleanor Jenkins cheered louder than anyone. The project she had been working on that painful weekend, the library ramp, was the centerpiece of her presentation. Meanwhile, 3 towns over, Mrs. Vance sat in a cramped break room of a discount telemarketing center. She rubbed her temples. It was the only job she could get. Her teaching license had been revoked permanently after the school board review, fueled by the undeniable evidence in Maya's binder, exposed a decade-long pattern of discrimination. Her name was mud in the education sector. She scrolled through her phone on her break and saw a news article. Local student genius wins state engineering award, dedicates win to breaking barriers. Vance stared at Maya's smiling face on the screen. The regret was a bitter pill lodged in her throat. She had looked at a future engineer and seen a statistic. And that mistake had cost her everything.
Back at the science fair, a reporter held a microphone up to Maya. Maya, your project is amazing, but we heard you had a difficult year at school. What kept you going? Maya smiled at the camera, her gaze sharp and wise beyond her years. I learned that when people try to put you in a box, you don't just break out of the box, she said. You take the box apart, document how it was built, and use the wood to build a podium to stand on. Never let someone else's prejudice stop you from building your own greatness. Boom! Mrs. Vance thought she was crushing a helpless bug, but she stepped on a landmine instead. Underestimating the intelligence and resilience of a child just because of their background is the most expensive mistake a bully can make. If you enjoyed seeing this racist teacher get absolutely destroyed by facts, logic, and a brilliant 12-year-old, smash that like button and subscribe. We post new stories of justice served every single day. Don't miss the next one.